If you think judges no longer hand out death penalties in the 21st century, think again. From teenagers sentenced to die for crimes committed in the heat of impulsive violence to those who spent decades on death row, only to be executed under questionable circumstances, today's video will reveal the story of the most shocking executions of the 21st century. Stephen Wayne Anderson, State, California, date of execution, January 29, 2002. Anderson committed his first violent crime in 1971 when he broke into a school in Farmington, New Mexico. During the robbery, he threatened 2 police officers. A court convicted him of burglary and sentenced him to 1 to 5 years in prison. In 1975, the state paroled him on that charge, but he continued to serve a sentence of 10 to 50 years for several aggravated burglary convictions. Officials later transferred Anderson to the Utah State Prison. While he was there, he killed a fellow inmate named Blundell on the 24th of August, 1977. On the 26th of May, 1980, Anderson broke into Bloomington, California. He broke into the home of Elizabeth Lyman, an 81-year-old retired piano teacher, by removing a glass pane from her French doors. In the middle of the night, he cut Lyman's telephone line with a knife. He searched the house, room by room, for anyone who might be inside. When he entered Lyman's bedroom, she woke up and screamed. Anderson shot her in the face from close range with a .45 caliber handgun, fatally wounding her. He covered her body with a blanket, recovered the expelled casing from the hollow point bullet that killed her, and ransacked her house for money. He found less than $100. He then prepared a meal for himself in Lyman's kitchen. A suspicious neighbor next door called the sheriff's department. As he was eating and watching television, sheriff's deputies responded to the call and arrested him. He admitted to the murder. Anderson later told detectives, "I was born and trained to be a killer. I always wanted to be a killer." He also admitted to 6 other contract killings in Las Vegas that happened before the crime for which he received a death sentence. On the 24th of November, 1979, Anderson escaped from prison. After that, he worked for drug traffickers and committed at least 1 murder in the eastern mountains of Salt Lake County. On the 24th of July, 1981, a court convicted Anderson and sentenced him to death. The prosecution used his violent history, both inside and outside prison, to show he was too dangerous to live. On the 29th of January, 2002, California executed Anderson by lethal injection at San Quentin State Prison. Donald Beardsley, State, California. Date of execution, January 19, 2005. In 1969, Beardsley choked, stabbed, and drowned Laura Griffin, whom he had just met. The two met in a bar, and after drinking and dancing with her, Beardsley went home with her. He later turned himself in and confessed to the killing. Beardsley pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, received a 19-year sentence, and served 7 years before being released on parole in 1977. No motive was established, and he did not explain. 4 years after leaving prison and while still on parole, Beardsley was arrested in California for the drug-related homicides of 19-year-old Patty Gedling and 23-year-old Stacy Benjamin in Redwood City, California. Prosecutors claimed that a drug deal involving Beardsley's roommate's friends had gone wrong, and a $185 drug debt remained unpaid. According to the prosecutors, Beardsley's roommate, Ricarda Sue Ricky Soria, lured the two women to their apartment as part of a plan orchestrated by drug dealer Frank Rutherford. They also noted that Beardsley had sent Soria to get duct tape to bind the victims before they arrived. According to the prosecution, Bill Forrester, Beardsley shot Gedling and later slashed Benjamin's throat. Beardsley's phone number was found near Gedling's body, and when police called, he confessed and led them to Benjamin's body. At the time of this crime, he was still on parole for the 1969 Missouri killing, making him eligible for the death penalty as a repeat offender. Rutherford was sentenced to life in prison without parole and died in prison in 2003. Soria pleaded no contest to second-degree murder in exchange for her testimony against Rutherford and Beardsley, receiving a sentence of 15 years to life. She was paroled in 2015. Bill Forrester was acquitted, and charges against a fifth person were dropped before trial. Beardsley was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. The defense appealed, arguing inadequate legal representation after the original lawyer quit the case, and also raised the issue of mental defect. However, prosecutors pointed out that Beardsley had above-average intelligence. Family members testified that he had lifelong difficulties expressing emotions, and prison records indicated he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. Beardsley was executed on the 19th of January 2005. Wesley Baker, State, Maryland. Date of execution, December 5, 2005. On the 6th of June, 1991, Wesley Baker walked up to Jane Tyson, who was 49 years old. She was getting into her car with her two grandchildren after shopping for shoes at Westview Mall in Catonsville. One grandchild was a 6-year-old boy and the other was a 4-year-old girl. Baker held a gun to her ear and demanded her purse. Without warning, he shot her, killing her instantly. Baker ran to the spot where his accomplice was waiting in a Chevrolet Blazer. A person nearby saw the two men drive away in the car. He wrote down the license plate number and called the police. Officers arrested Wesley Baker and Gregory Lawrence shortly thereafter. On the 26th of October, 1992, a jury in the Circuit Court for Harford County found Baker guilty of first-degree murder, robbery with a deadly weapon, and using a handgun during a felony. 4 days later, the same jury sentenced him to death. They also gave him a total of 40 years for the other two charges. The Maryland Court of Appeals upheld both his conviction and sentence. Lawrence was convicted of the same charges 1 year earlier. He received a life sentence plus 33 years. Baker was executed by lethal injection on the 5th of December, 2005. Clarence Ray Allen, State, California. Date of execution, January 17, 2006. In 1974, Allen planned the burglary of Fran's Market near Fresno, owned by Ray and Fran Schledowitz. Allen had known them for years. He involved his son, Roger Allen, along with Ed Savala, Carl Mayfield, and Charles Jones. Mayfield and Jones worked for Allen in both his security guard business and a burglary ring he allegedly ran. Allen arranged for someone to steal a set of door and alarm keys from the market owner's son, Brian Schleitwitz, while Brian was swimming in Allen's pool. He also set up a date between Brian and Mary Sue Kitts, Roger Allen's 17-year-old girlfriend. During their date, the burglary took place. The thieves stole $500 in cash and $10,000 in money orders from the store's safe. After the burglary, Kitts told Brian that Allen was behind the crime. She knew this because she had helped Allen cash the stolen money orders. Brian later confronted Roger Allen and said Kitts had told him everything. Roger told his father, Clarence, who then said that Brian and Kitts would have to be dealt with. He brought in 3 employees from his security firm, Charles Jones, Carl Mayfield, and Eugene Lee Furrow. Allen ordered Lee Furrow to kill Kitts. Furrow first tried to poison her with cyanide capsules, but the attempt failed. Allen later called Furrow to ask if he had killed Kitts. Furrow told Allen he was in the process of strangling her, and Allen replied, "Do it." After killing Kitts, Furrow threw her body into the Friant-Kern Canal. The body has never been found. Years later, the police arrested Furrow. He confessed to the murder and blamed Allen. The court tried Allen for first-degree murder. A jury convicted him and the judge gave him a life sentence. Furrow said Clarence had threatened to kill him if he did not murder Mary. Furrow pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of second-degree murder. While in Folsom Prison, Allen planned with another inmate, Billy Ray Hamilton, to kill the witnesses who had testified against him. One of those witnesses was Brian Schleitwitz. Allen wanted a new trial without anyone left to speak against him. After the state paroled Hamilton from Folsom Prison, he followed Allen's orders. 5 days after the events at Franz Market, the police arrested Hamilton while he tried to rob a liquor store. They found a hit list on him that included the names and addresses of the witnesses who had testified against Allen during his trial for Kit's murder. Byron Schledowitz's name was on the list. A jury found Hamilton guilty of 3 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted robbery, and 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. The jury also found special circumstances that made Hamilton eligible for the death penalty. They said he committed the murders during a robbery and that he killed more than 1 person. The jury gave a unanimous verdict of death, and the Contra Costa County Superior Court sentenced Hamilton on March 2, 1981. In 1980, the California Attorney General filed charges against Allen and led the trial in Glenn County, California. The jury later found Allen guilty of triple murder and of planning to kill 8 witnesses. The jury also found special reasons to make Allen eligible for the death penalty. They said he had already been convicted of murder, had committed more than 1 murder, and had killed witnesses to punish them for past testimony and to stop them from testifying again. Allen was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances. On the 2nd of December, 1982, officials sent him to death row at San Quentin State Prison in California. On the 17th of January, 2006, California executed Allen by lethal injection at San Quentin State Prison. Robert Anderson, State, Texas. Date of execution, July 20, 2006. On the 9th of June, 1992, Anderson kidnapped and murdered 5-year-old Audra Ann Reeves in Amarillo, Texas. He told police that he had taken Audra as she was walking home from a park. He brought her into his house, her. He beat, stabbed, and droned Reeves before storing her body in a styrofoam ice chest. Anderson rolled the ice chest to a dumpster. A neighbor found Audra's body later that day while throwing out trash. Police identified Anderson as the person who threw away the chest. They arrested him, and he confessed almost right away. Anderson said he committed the crime after a fight with his wife of 8 months. The Associated Press quoted him as saying, "The whole day revolves around the fight. She stormed out of the house and said that when she returned, she didn't want to find me." At his trial, Anderson spoke to Judge Clinton Averett. He said, "Sir, this may sound callous. I don't want to hurt anybody any longer, and I want to be executed." Anderson received a death sentence. He was executed by lethal injection on July 20, 2006 at the Huntsville unit. Rocky Barton, State, Ohio. Date of execution, 2006. Kimberly and Barton had a domestic dispute on the morning of January 16, 2003. Later that day, Kimberly came home to gather her things so she could move out. Barton ambushed her by locking the gate to the driveway after she entered. Barton then appeared and shot Kimberly once in the shoulder, then in the back with a shotgun. Barton's uncle and his 17-year-old daughter saw the shooting. At trial, Barton admitted he committed the murder. He told the jury that he deserved to die. Rocky Barton also attempted to take his own life, but only succeeded in blowing off the lower half of his face. The state paid for Barton's facial surgeries. The surgeries left him unrecognizable and forced him to wear a partial mask on his face. While he waited for trial, officials held him at the Warren County Jail in Lebanon, Ohio. People called him Darth Vader because of the mask. At one point, Rocky Barton and Kimberly's ex-husband were both in the Warren County Jail at the same time. However, officials never placed them in the same pod. 2 months after his sentence, Barton filed a notice of direct appeal to the Ohio Supreme Court. However, on October 4, 2004, he filed a pro se motion to withdraw the appeal and waive legal counsel. The Ohio Supreme Court held oral arguments in September 2005. In October 2005, Barton filed another pro se motion to waive all review of his conviction. He chose not to request executive clemency. Barton had worked as a construction laborer and a horse trainer. He had also served time in prison before the murder. He admitted that his parents' divorce, his drug and alcohol use, and his struggles with depression and anxiety had affected his life. The state of Ohio executed Barton on July 12, 2006. The execution took place at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville, Ohio. Franklin Dwayne Alex. State, Texas. Date of execution, March 30, 2010. In August 1997, Alex began a 6-month violent crime spree in Houston. During that time, he killed at least 3 people. He committed most of his crimes at apartment complexes. On 4 occasions, he kidnapped people by forcing them into car trunks. On August 8th, Alex shot and killed 41-year-old Gregorio Ramirez during an attempted robbery in an apartment parking lot. Gregorio's widow saw Alex and identified him as the shooter. On October 5th, Alex shot and killed Selamawi Tewolda in an apartment parking lot. On December 6th, Alex stopped a patrolling apartment security guard at gunpoint. He told the guard to turn around and run away. He then fired 3 shots, hitting the guard in the back. The man survived. On December 19th, Alex shot and wounded a townhome security guard after searching for money. Later that day, Alex got out of a car to rob a man in an apartment parking lot. The man got into the car and drove away. He later found a woman in the trunk. The woman said she had been robbed and On January 3rd, Alex kidnapped 19-year-old Carol Bridgeford. He forced her into the trunk of his car and drove away. Alex threatened her and demanded money. Carol told him he could take things from her home. Alex threatened Carol with his gun, saying he would kill her and anyone else in the house if anything went wrong. He searched the home, stole several electronics, and Carol. Alex ransacked the home, and Carol's 23-year-old brother Eric and his friend suddenly arrived. The 2 men ran away, but Alex chased them, shooting and killing Eric. Later that day, Alex stopped a woman at gunpoint in an apartment parking lot. He robbed her and kidnapped her. He forced the woman into the trunk of her car. Alex then drove off and released her after half an hour. On January 4th, Alex robbed a man walking home. Later that day, he robbed and fatally shot 34-year-old Christopher Thomas. Thomas was listening to music in his car outside his home. On January 6, 1998, officers in Houston arrested Alex. He confessed on videotape to killing Eric and led police to the weapon. Alex faced capital murder charges for killing Eric. Prosecutors said they would seek the death sentence for him. During his trial, Alex had several outbursts. At one point, the court removed him from the courtroom. The jury recommended a death sentence, and the judge formally sentenced Alex to death on September 2, 1998. Alex was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit on March 30, 2010. Mark James Asay. State, Florida. Date of execution, August 24, 2017. On July 17, 1987, Asay, his brother Robbie, and their friend Bubba visited several bars in Jacksonville, Florida. They drank beer and played pool. After leaving a bar in the early hours of July 18th, the 3 men decided to go downtown to find some prostitutes. There, Robbie started talking with a man named Robert Lee Booker, who was 34 years old and black. Asay became angry and shouted racial slurs at Booker. After the 2 got into a confrontation, Asay took out a gun from his back pocket and shot Booker once in the abdomen. Booker ran away but died from his gunshot wound. The bullet went through his intestines and an artery, causing internal bleeding. Later that day, someone found Booker's body under the edge of a house. After the shooting, Robbie ran away, while Asay and Bubba left in a truck. When Bubba asked why Asay had shot Booker, Asay said, "Because you got to show a nigger who is boss." Asay did not believe he had killed Booker after he shot him. Afterward, Asay and Bubba continued to look for prostitutes. Bubba then spotted a prostitute whom he only knew as Renee. He believed she would give them oral However, both men were unaware that Renee was a 26-year-old mixed-race man named Robert McDowell, who dressed as a woman. After speaking with McDowell, the two negotiated a deal for Bubba drove himself and Asay to a nearby alley, and McDowell followed them. Once there, Asay left the truck so Bubba and McDowell could have. As McDowell got inside, Asay suddenly returned, grabbed McDowell's arm, pulled him out, and shot at him. Asay shot McDowell 6 times as he attempted to escape. Asay and Bubba then drove away. Asay said he shot McDowell because the bitch had beat me out of $10 on a blow. People found McDowell's body on the ground in the alley soon after the shooting. A medical examiner said McDowell had been shot 3 times in the chest, and any one of the shots could have killed him. The police arrested Asay and charged him with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The jury found him guilty of both murders. They recommended that the court give him the death penalty. The trial court sentenced Asay to death for each conviction. On November 18, 1988, the court gave Asay separate death sentences for killing Booker and McDowell. Asay was first scheduled to be executed on March 17, 2016. However, on March 2nd, the Supreme Court of Florida stopped the execution after the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that Florida's death penalty laws were unconstitutional. On July 3, 2017, Asay's execution warrant was signed. His execution was scheduled for August 24, 2017. On that day, Asay was executed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison. John Davis Battaglia, Jr., State, Texas. Date of execution, February 1, 2018. On May 2, 2001, Pearl left her daughters with Battaglia to have dinner at the mall. Instead, Battaglia took the girls to his apartment in the Adam Hatz Lofts in Deep Ellum, Dallas. From the apartment, Battaglia called Pearl. With Pearl on the phone, he shot and killed their daughters, ages 6 and 9. During the phone call, Battaglia asked Faith to say to Pearl, "Why do you want Daddy to go to jail?" Before she died, Faith cried, "No, Daddy. Please don't. Don't do it." Pearl told the girls to run, but it was too late. Battaglia grabbed his gun and shot Faith 3 times, and shot Liberty 5 times. He told Pearl, "Merry fucking Christmas," about the Christmas 1999 assault. Pearl ended the call and dialed 911. After the killings, Battaglia left a message on the answering machine in the girls' bedroom. "Good night, my little babies. I hope you're resting in a different place. I love you. I wish that you had nothing to do with your mother. She was evil, vicious, and stupid. You will be free of her. I love you very dearly. You were very brave girls. Very brave. Liberty, you were oh so brave. I love you so much. Bye." Afterward, Battaglia went to a tattoo parlor and had 2 roses, one for each of his daughters, tattooed on his left biceps. He was arrested shortly after and got into a fistfight with the police officers, which gave him a black eye. Police took 16 firearms from his house. Texas authorities said Battaglia killed his daughters in retaliation because Pearl had complained to his probation officer. On April 22, 2002, Battaglia's capital murder trial began at the Frank Crowley Courts building in Dallas. During the penalty phase, his lawyers argued that he should not get the death penalty because he had bipolar disorder. On April 30, 2002, the jury sentenced Battaglia to death. He was scheduled to be executed on March 30, 2016. However, the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a stay to review claims that he was not mentally competent for execution. On August 15, 2016, Battaglia's new execution date was set for December 7, 2016. However, on December 2, 2016, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals issued another stay because of questions about his mental competency. On October 31, 2017, Battaglia's death warrant was signed and the execution date was reset for February 1, 2018. After more appeals failed, Battaglia was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit in Huntsville. Brandon Bernard, State, Indiana. Date of execution, December 10, 2020. On the afternoon of June 21, 1999, Brandon Bernard, 18, Christopher Andre Villalva, 19, Terry Terrell Brown, 17, Christopher Michael Lewis, 17, and Tony Sparks, 16, approached Todd and Stacy Bagley, two youth pastors, at a gas station and asked for a ride. After the Bagleys agreed to give them a ride, Villalva held the couple at gunpoint and forced them into the trunk. While in the trunk for several hours as the teens drove around, the Bagleys spoke through an opening in the back seat, urging their abductors to accept Jesus into their hearts and spare their lives. The perpetrators then robbed the Bagleys, using their ATM card to withdraw cash, stealing money, taking jewelry, and attempting to pawn Stacy's wedding ring. Soon after, the teens stopped at Belton Lake Recreation Area and poured lighter fluid inside the vehicle while the Bagleys sang "Jesus Loves Me." Villalva then shot both of the Bagleys in the head, killing Todd instantly. Bernard then set the car on fire. The perpetrators ran down the hill to get to Bernard's car and tried to drive away, but the car slid off the road and ended up in a muddy ditch. As they attempted to extricate the car from the ditch, first responders arrived at the scene after receiving reports of a fire. Firefighters found the bodies in the trunk of the burned car, and the perpetrators were arrested. Bernard's trial was held in 2000, 1 year after the murders. He was sentenced to death on June 13, 2000. Bernard was executed by lethal injection at the United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana, on December 10, 2020. Which of these executions shocked you most? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more in-depth dives. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.